Welcome to Solo, the single person's guide to a remarkable life. Your host, a behavioral scientist and bachelor, talks to leading experts and successful singles about living solo and living well. Travel more, make things, sleep in when you want to. Here's the playbook for the person who is unapologetically unattached. Now, please welcome Dr. Peter McGraw.
So I think part of the reason that people don't like to dine alone is they feel what's called the spotlight effect. They think everybody's looking at them and judging them for being alone, and no one's doing that. No one is ever going, oh, that poor alone person. If anything, they're like, I wish I was not with the person I'm dining with right now.
They're like, look at that person over there sipping on their wine, having such a great time.
Now, I do have some what I would call best practices or sort of ideas about how to go about dining alone. Welcome back. We continue our investigation of solitude, and as you might imagine, I'm focused on its benefits. This week I speak to a friend and remarkable single about how she spends her alone time. We discuss her, quote, old man activities, unquote, which includes restoring a vintage van, an endeavor that has brought her into contact with an involved community and new friends. I won't give it away here, but please pay attention to when the conversation turns to the idea of editing. And we finish by giving some encouragement and discussing some best practices for people who want to cook alone, dine alone, or go to the movies alone. I hope you enjoy the episode. Let's get started. Welcome to Solo, the single person's guide to a remarkable life. I'm Peter McGraw. Today's guest is Christina Martinez. This episode continues our exploration of solitude. As part of it, I'm talking to remarkable singles to explore their practices and perspectives about how they spend their time alone. Christina is an outdoorsy DIYer living in Denver. She's the marketing manager and strategist at Scott's Liquid Gold and Neoteric Cosmetics. Christina holds a degree in marketing and HR from the University of Colorado, which is where I met her more than 10 years ago. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you, Peter.
Christina, so we actually met in my consumer behavior class and have since become friends. And one of the things that I liked about you as a student was it wasn't how well you performed in my class.
I know.
It was your reaction to that joke, that you always have just such a sunny disposition, like you are living your life happily, and you're good at life. And that's something that I've recognized in the ensuing years. A lot of people aren't good at life, but you, Christina, are good at life. And I want the listener to learn a little bit about how you approach life. Whether you are coupled or single, you do both. Mm-hmm. You seem happy doing both. Is that fair to say?
Yep.
Yes. Would you describe yourself as a single by chance person more than a single by choice person?
I would say 50-50. This last year, it was really important for me to just kind of do my own thing after being with someone for a while.
And yes, you were with someone for a long time, and then you were with that person long distance for a while.
Yeah,
correct?
I was. Mm-hmm. And that was really interesting for me to kind of learn about how I reacted to both situations, and then it really is what made me want the year by myself afterwards.
So say more about that. So you were doing, so your partner was in another state, so far, but not like across the globe.
Nope. Yep. We weren't on crazy different time zones. We were only an hour apart as far as that goes. So it was easy to still figure out times to communicate. And we were within driving distance, only 7 hours apart. But it's just really different when you don't have a default person that you feel obligated to invite to a lot of things. It's more intentional when you choose to bring them along.
And so then you're like, is this worth a 7-hour drive?
I mean, it would be though, right? Like, how important is this event to you? Do you already have friends there? Like, it's just, you kind of pick and choose things where a lot of times I would default to just bringing along someone that I'm dating or making sure I'm there for things I probably don't really need to be there for.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say this because this series is coming on the heels of a previous series about unconventional relationships, and we explore the relationship escalator. And one of the hallmarks of the relationship escalator is that a partner, someone that you're riding the relationship escalator with, by the way, if you're listening to this and don't know what I'm talking about, I'm not going to explain it again. You need to go back and listen because I've talked about this so much. This should just be part of the vernacular of solo at this point. But this default thing is, well, this person is the go-to person for events.
Yeah.
Right? For travel, for parties, for dinner parties, for, a Friday night, for a wedding, and so on. And so what's interesting, Christina, you describing the situation where you have this person, who in many ways checks the relationship escalator boxes, I suspect. However, because of the distance, you are now opened up with a possibility where this person is not the default anymore. And then you have to decide, do I go solo? Do I invite someone else?
Yeah, I feel like for a long time now, I've just kind of been the fifth wheel because I wouldn't bring someone for a while because I technically had a date. But then they just weren't available. Mm-hmm. But after a while, I just started inviting all kinds of people as my dates. And it was really fun. I got closer to a lot of different people, and it really showed me, I don't know, it's enriching to have more people involved in different parts of your life than just one go-to person.
You sound like the ideal solo listener right now. My goodness.
Well, you said earlier, what I didn't make an impression on you with my smarts. At least I had some of my charm to get there.
I didn't say your smarts. I said your performance. There's a difference.
Yeah,
there.
I definitely did get an A in your class.
I think that's funny. So now, how do you go about this? This is starting to fit into our theme about at least how you spend your alone time. So you talked about being a fifth wheel. You don't have to be a fifth wheel, right? You can invite someone along, a friend, and and so on, a family member, something like that. How do you decide when you get invited to some event, or when there is an event, let's say, whether you go solo or whether you seek someone else to join you? Is there some way you go about choosing?
Sometimes, just depending on what it is, I've joined groups, right, and kind of in the fifth wheel when we're going out for concerts, and that I'm like, I'll just grab whoever and dance with whoever. It sounds more fun to go by myself. And then there's like a wedding I went to this summer. It was really intimate and small, and I only knew the bride. And like, I just was like, it'd be fun to have someone to talk crap about with my drink in the corner. So I ended up bringing a girlfriend, and we had a blast together. And the bride was cool, totally fine. She was like, your plus one's your plus one. You can bring whoever you want. And it was the first time I had ever brought in a girlfriend as a date to a wedding, but it was a blast. It's one of the best times I've had at a wedding. So
I think that's outstanding. I'm in the sweet spot in life between weddings and funerals right now. And so I don't have to make these choices. And when it comes to funerals, you don't need a date, so most of those hard decisions are behind me at this point. But I love that you did that. And it's really nice that your friend accepted that, because I could imagine scenarios where there'd be some pushback, again, because of the relationship escalator in that sense. Now, what I wanted to get into with you is, so you're good at life. You're a happy person. You're just delightful to be around. Now you're good about being alone. That's why you're on this podcast. But as you were saying, you're kind of 50-50, single by choice, single by chance. In the long run, you might want to partner up. What do you feel about having kids?
So I've gone back and forth on this. If you would have asked me even 6 months ago till any time before that, I was always like, absolutely not. Why would I put my life on pause for somebody else at any point in my life? And I've just started to reapproach it. I have this whole kind of perspective on there's things that I'm able to do, so I should do them. And for me, like,
that was written down. So this is a perfect segue.
Okay, good. So, it's kind of impactful when you meet people that, for instance, like in a wheelchair, and then I look at it and I'm like, I'm so lucky that I'm able to run. And then I went and signed up for several marathons. And then I went and did a half Ironman. There's just all these different things that because I'm capable, I feel like I should do them and have the experience. Mm-hmm. We only get one life. And kids has started to become one of those things that I know.
You're like, I have a uterus.
I know. And it's such a stupid reason. I by no means have made a decision, and I wouldn't be like, I'm doing this now. There's a lot to consider taking on that. But I just feel like it's, as you would say, it's not special. Half the population can have a child.
Have I said that?
Yeah, you did say that.
Have I said that on the podcast, or have I said that in a private conversation?
I think it was a private conversation. But it's like I can still do something that 50% of the world can't do.
That's
and
true.
even
more
more
than
than
50%.
that.
Yeah,
even more than that. Like, I'm really fortunate to be healthy, and I am capable of doing that. And it's an experience that, it's just like nothing else. So I have put it back on the table to consider.
Okay.
I do not know how there's a lot of other things, right, that come with having a family and things like that I appreciate it. But if we're just talking about the pregnancy portion of it, that's my, I think I'm just starting to get older, and I've realized how nice, especially during COVID, you spend your time alone. I've gotten to appreciate it so much, but there's things I haven't gotten to do as a single person that I thought I would be spending my time doing, which is traveling. And I've really started to reflect, when all of that stuff's off the table, what would I want to be focusing on right now? And so those things have popped back up. But yeah.
I have an idea, Christina, and this is putting this out to the world. If a couple needs a surrogate, Christina would be the perfect surrogate. She takes good care of herself. She's happy. She's responsible. And this is a win-win, right? So now someone who couldn't have a baby gets a baby, and you get to be pregnant because you're able to get pregnant.
Yeah, I see how it sounded that way, but absolutely not. If I'm going through all this work, I'm keeping it. I mean, I'm starting to, like I said, get to the point where if I'm doing the work, I'm keeping that kid, and I'm making it into a mini-me. I'm making it into like a trail running partner.
I do want to clarify my thing about it's not special. The issue is this. I would say it's special to you, but it's not special to the world, is the way I feel about having children.
Sure.
That's right. Like, it is incredibly special to the people having that child, but it's not a special act. It's not a special act in terms of global proportions. It is special in terms of the miracle of life. Yes, of course. But, humans have been doing that for a long time. So I don't want to get a lot of angry messages from my parents who are solo listeners that are there. And as I say, like, again, I think like parenthood, like marriage, is probably overprescribed. That is, it's good for a lot of people, but the pressure that people feel to have it and do it, I don't think serves them, because people find themselves on a path later that they go, I'm not really well suited for this.
Sure.
In a sense, yeah.
And I'm definitely in the spot where, again, I've started to have nephews and all of those things, and I can appreciate kids now, but I'm not one of my friends I have some friends that are going to get pregnant at some point any way possible. Their goal is to be a parent. Mm-hmm. Mine is, if I find the right partner that adds value to my life and, to your point, doesn't hinder me from doing other things, that helps me progress and actually helps me progress in different ways, then, like, sure, I'd love to go on an adventure with them of adding to that. But I'm not I'm not a surrogate. I'm not having this baby and not reaping the rewards.
Yeah, I think that's a healthy way to go about approaching it, where you're actually open up to the possibilities and it becomes a choice rather than a certainty. It scares me when people are like, I am going to have children no matter what the way is. I guess if you have means, it's possible to do, but it seems like a hard slog, especially being a child of a single mother, a full-time single mother, is boy. Woo. But I do like this idea. I like your perspective that I want to do things that I'm able to do. Mm-hmm. That there a recognition that, if you, as I like to say, first of all, some of it's just luck, right? The fact the fact that we have two legs that work is a stroke of luck in many ways, and we should celebrate that. Then there's also this thing about, and, heck, even like just being born at the time that we were born gives us many, and where we are born in the United States gives us many, many more opportunities, and to squander them, I do see as a missed opportunity. And I like that about you. I also like this idea that doing these things, just because you're able to do them, presents challenges and presents growth. So let's talk about your marathons and your Ironman experiences. So, you decided to run a marathon because you can run, which is let's be honest, it's an unusual reason to run a marathon. Yeah, that's fine. But it's look, people run marathons for a variety of reasons. There's no right or wrong reason. What was your experience doing that? That obviously was some solo time. Like when you go out and running 10 miles a day, you're often doing that alone, right? So that actually propelled you into a further solo activity.
Yeah, it was really interesting because you start out and you're training and you're going 5 miles, and that's like, I don't know, half an hour, right? There's not half an hour, 45 minutes. You're not out there that long. You can listen to your favorite couple songs, and then you start doing longer training runs like a half marathon, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna be out here for, hour and a half, 2 hours. Like I started listening to podcasts to distract myself, and then you start being out there for 3-hour training runs. It's like I'd put a book on tape, but that's not really pumped up motivating. And so you're having all these times, and you're trying to talk yourself through to, I will tell you, those Lime scooters, worst invention, because I would run.
So tempting.
I would run far enough out to get my training run, but then one of those stupid things would just be sitting there. And so I'd be like 10 miles out and over all of my thoughts. And then I'd be like, well, I know I'd have to do this route to make 5 miles back home, but I could just grab this scooter and jump on this path, and the worst. But that's a willpower thing. But at some point, really, all of the things I end up doing now by myself, I know there's people that wake up and specifically have time for meditation, and that's really just not how I work. I don't set time aside in the morning to specifically journal or read, but I think I have these moments where I wake up and I go on my runs, and I don't always put music on. That's when I collect my thoughts and kind of do planning and everything else. At first it was a lot of noise and trying to ignore things to get through the run, and now I can really get into a groove and kind of lose myself during it. So
yeah, that's really lovely. I have an ex who's a big time runner. I'm sure she doesn't listen to this podcast, but she's a hardcore runner. And she would go out and run, like you said, she'd go run 10 miles. Just get up, drink a glass of water, and go run 10 miles. And would do it without earbuds. She would just have her key, you know what I mean? And just go. And I said, you don't listen to music? You don't listen to podcasts? You don't listen to books on tape or anything? She goes, no, I'm running. That's what you do. You run. And I was so inspired by that, because I had never considered doing that. I had never considered even working out without music, again, to get you pumped up, the Rocky theme song and all that kind of stuff. The weird fantasies that run through your head as you're working out. But you know what I'm talking about.
I
do. And so I started, there's a trail run in Boulder, Colorado that I would do once a week. And it was one of my favorite hours of the week. It's just beautiful. It smells good. It's not too busy. It's a hard workout, but not so hard that you're ruined, that kind of thing. And one day I was like, I'll just take my key and I'll just do the run. And it didn't go very well. But, as I know with a lot of things, when you're making a change the first time, it doesn't go very well. But after the 4th or 5th time, I figured it out. I was like, I get it. I'm alone with my thoughts. I can pay attention to the trail more or less. I can pay attention to my thought more or less. And I don't know about you, but I would, I'd only be out an hour, but I would come off the mountain with 1 to 5 ideas, where I would give myself a chance to work through something, and I would have to, the only challenge was remembering the insights, and I would have to actually practice remembering the insights. But I invite people to consider an activity that they do, that they fill the time and the space with music, information, which is super accessible, and try it just being alone. So a big one is a drive, right? A long drive. It's okay to have the radio off for some time.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're training for these marathons, you're doing these runs, you decide to throw away your headphones. How did it go with the marathon? It must have went okay. You did several of them, and then you eventually transitioned into Ironman, which is swim, bike, run, yes?
Yep. So first of all, Ironman's a big title. I'm just going to preface this with saying I did a 70.3. I did a half Ironman.
Okay.
Some people, people earn that title. I don't want to take it from them. But that was approached kind of a different way. I make a New Year's resolution every year, and usually at least one is something tangible, and the rest can be intrinsic. And that year...
So can you give some examples? So you said one is tangible, so like something that you actually do, but the other one's sort of a change in perspective?
Yeah. It's something I want to work on personally. I've had years where I was really focusing on being more patient or things like that. But
Wait, you've already worked on this, Christina?
You have no clue how bad it was before.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Just think. But my goal that year, I had never, growing up in Colorado, we're in a landlocked state, and my parents really never did anything water sports wise. So I had never learned how to swim growing up. And so my goal was to learn how to swim. And I I could take swim lessons or go to a pool and just say I made it to the other end. But I really wanted to prove to myself that I actually learned how to do it, conditioned for it. So I signed up for the half Ironman to do that portion of it. I already bike and run, but I had never really mastered the swim part. So it was nice because it gave my goal, I couldn't be too lackadaisical about learning it. It can't be I have a whole year, I'll do that in the fall. I had to get on it because I signed up for an event. And then once I did it, I had to prove to myself it wasn't just I went and puttered around in the pool. You got to go swim 1.2 miles in open water. And either
with other
you learned
people
it,
around, it's no
yeah,
joke.
with people crawling over you, and either you learned it or you didn't. It'll be very telling. So that really was how I got into that. I wanted to prove to myself I did it, and man, I was slow. I was not definitely one of the last ones out of the water, but I made up for it on the run. I passed people. So
okay. And I think you told me this story. You went to South America to do a half Ironman, yes?
Yeah, I did it in Buenos Aires, which again sounded like a great kind of celebration goal. You get I thought, I'm kicking off my trip with this. I'm going to hit one of my goals. It was early in the year too, March. Awesome. Hitting this goal, then I'm going to go out there and get to celebrate and drink after doing all this training and indulge myself in food all over. And let me tell you, I hadn't thought through all of the logistics. Despite my last name being Martinez, I am not versed in Spanish whatsoever.
What do you tell people when someone starts speaking to you in Spanish because your last name is Martinez? What do you say?
I say it's my married name so they don't judge me. Because there's two things that happened. One, they're like, oh, she's not a real Martinez, which, it's kind of true. I know nobody can see me on this podcast, but if you saw me, I'm very white. And number two, it actually makes them like you more because they stop judging you for not knowing it. And then they're like, oh, and she likes our people. She chooses to be within the Martinez clan. It's a lie. I know it's terrible, but it also stops people from shaming me for not knowing Spanish.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, and I worked in building materials for the last 11 years, so I was always interacting with people speaking Spanish, and so, yeah, it just became my line. But I hadn't thought it through when I planned to do this half Ironman in Argentina that I had never done a try. So I'm down there they're telling everything's in Spanish. There's no bilingual signs. I didn't realize it was a qualifier race that I signed up for. I snagged a spot for. So there was a lot of people with intense gear trying to hit their times. They're trying to get to that next stage. And here's me with like my little crappy road bike pedaling along, not knowing what the instructions are being yelled at me in Spanish. It was a lot. I should have probably done one US side first, but it was a really good experience in the end. And I did it, so.
And you've got this great story, and then you went off and traveled through Patagonia, and you had this amazing adventure. Yeah, I think that's
And
that's
then I
really
was guilt-free, right? I was on vacation, and I was like, I just worked out so much. You just feel great going into it.
Yeah, so anybody listening can probably appreciate why I chose Christina to be one of the remarkable singles that I wanted to investigate Solitude with. Not only is she living a remarkable life, but she embraces one of the principles of solo that I haven't talked about in a long time, that idea of living on your edge. Sometimes as a result of trying to live on your edge, you go a little too far, but that can spur some growth and, as we just said, a good story. When you think about your time alone, it's clear to me that you think about it with the idea of, oh, this is an opportunity for me.
Yeah.
And you have what you call your old man activities.
So I would just like to say I coined saying my old man activities after you one time told me what an old man I am after just catching up with you. So if anybody on this listening actually knows me, they know I spend a lot of time in my garage and with my dog. And so one day, Peter, I think you were saying, I was talking about what I was up to, and you're like, yep, you're just like hanging out in your garage with your dog. And I have an old van that I work on, which I'm restoring and doing some customization too. And so you add up all these things and you're like, oh man, I guess I do sound like a 60-year-old dude. Like just hang out in my garage by myself working on my van with my dog.
I think it's refreshing. I said it with affection.
Okay.
You have a 1968 Dodge A108.
Yes.
That you're restoring, and people can see this van if they are on Instagram at Rustic Roaming. Yes?
Yes.
And this van is really popular. This van is more popular than you are on Instagram.
Yeah, nobody cares. Every once in a while, my girlfriends are always like, why don't you post a picture of yourself? Like, it's your page. Talk about your story and stuff. And I always tell them, nobody cares. They just want to see my van. And I post pictures of my dog, I post pictures of myself, and people are kind and interact with them. But no matter what I post, if it's my dog, my van, it's something else, they will ask me, I can post a picture of myself feeling pretty cute. And the comment I will get is, so did you change out what did you do with that wiring? Like, remember last week when you were talking about the wiring? And I was like, you're right. I haven't posted an update about the wiring. How dare I post this picture of me feeling real cute in front of my van? I'll put a picture up of the wiring.
That is so funny. I didn't even know that I helped you with your old man activities
coining
moniker of sorts. Yes, I think that's great. And I think it's really funny because I'm the opposite of this. Like, I spend as little time as I can. I don't even want to own a garage, right? Like, that's how different I am. I want to be able to park my car in the basement of a high-rise building and
throw the keys to a valet.
That's an inside joke. I don't do that, but that's an inside joke. That's very funny. Yeah, so let's step back. I will tell you this. I think I follow you on Instagram. I certainly follow Rustic Roaming.
You definitely follow. I don't know if you follow me personally.
I think I do, but I know that even I care about this Instagram. Like, I think it's really fabulous. But how did it happen? Like, how does you were in your 20s, I think, when you started this.
Yep.
How does a late 20-something decide to buy an old 1968 Dodge A108 and restore it?
Yeah. So it was totally random. Sometimes I'm a little impulsive, if you can't tell by like the randomly signing up for swimming in another country. But Well, two things happened. One, I saw this thing, and I don't know what it was about it.
Where did you see it?
I saw it online, listed for sale randomly. I just kind of came across it, and I was like, this thing is so adorable. I have to have it. It's also this green that's like a total 50s green. And my condo before the place I currently have had this green bathtub. Like, when the whole bathroom's done in one solid color. So each floor of this condo building, when it was in the mid-century time, had like one floor was pink tile, one floor was the green bathroom, one floor was the blue. I had a green one. And I just always loved that color. And I don't know, it was just iconic a little bit. So I saw this van and I was just immediately drawn to it. And with me being a little impulsive, I was like, I'm going to get this. I'll figure it out. I think this would be fun. I'm going to turn this into a tailgating machine and I'll YouTube it. These days, you can YouTube anything. So there was that part of it. And then there was a second part of it, which I ran into a little bit just at work. Being in marketing, I feel like my whole job is creating things and other people editing it down. And it's never really what you initially envisioned it. And not saying that it isn't better, right? It's a team effort. And usually for the business, it's the correct way to go. But
someone's messing with your baby.
Yeah. And so this kind of was an opportunity. I was like, I'm going to get to design something. I have my own page. I can post whatever I want. It was kind of a creative outlet where nobody was editing me and got to be my own thing. So that was really exciting. And I think just the combination of the two and where I was at that point in time mentally, I took it on.
Yeah, you're being very kind, because I phrase this somewhat differently, and that is, I don't like people telling me what to do.
Yeah.
And so I like that idea of that. I don't like people editing me or editing your work at the very least. That I think I can appreciate that, and I think a lot of solos can appreciate that. And solo activities, and especially solo creative activities, you do feel like, yes, I understand how a team can make something better, but there is something about the freedom of creating the thing that you want, and you get to live with the consequences of it, good or bad.
Yeah, seeing your whole vision play out. And to your point, I think it is a solo thing. Like, that's, maybe I'm going on a tangent now, but that's basically what relationships are, right? It's compromise, and you're constantly like editing yourself. And
that's
situations like when I'm choose to do something by myself, whether it be any kind of relationship, like with a friend or someone I'm dating, I'm the whole time, right? If I bring them to an event, I'm hosting them. I'm trying to be thoughtful if they're integrated into the group. I'm making sure what I say isn't like going to make anybody uncomfortable. There's just all these other elements. Whereas if I go do something by myself, I just get to do however I want to do it. And you're just not having to take into consideration everyone else's opinion. So
that's wonderful to hear. I think people need to hear that, Christina. I think that matters, because too often people are sort of shamed or looked at sideways or treated like a curiosity because they want to do things alone. Because the norm so much is you're supposed to be this dyad going off in the world and doing it. And I think there is something, if you have a solo mentality, again, solo is not, I talk about the single person's guide to a remarkable life, but really technically, you don't have to be single to appreciate the kind of conversations that we're having, because really some of it's about freedom and autonomy and moving through life at your pace in the way that you want, or as you say, not being edited, because of someone else's, their own vision, their compromise, whether it be professionally or personally. I have a solo entrepreneurs club on Clubhouse now. And I think a lot of the solo entrepreneurs, yes, they struggle because they probably could stand a team in some ways, but in some ways they like the freedom of being the maker and the deliverer, and the editor along the way.
Yeah.
It's there. So last thing about rustic roaming and this, but this has taken on another level, right? So you impulsively buy this van.
Yes.
I can fix it up. You start fixing it up. And then, but where has it taken you? Like, do you have new friends because of this? I know that your garage is nicer because of this. I want to hear about that. You now have this. It's a public figure of sorts. So talk a little bit about that process, because what started off as this sort of impulsive decision has now turned into something that, I mean, it's a big part of your life.
Yeah, it's funny because it's not like I have some crazy amount of followers, but the people that interact with me on my page all the time, a lot of them have the same make and model van, and there's just not a lot of them out there. It's not like a VW. So it's a lot more.
It's way cooler, to be honest. Let's
I think so. Obviously, I'm biased.
You don't have to say it. I'll say it. It's way cooler.
Well, thank you. You're right. It is way cooler. And but like, so it's a little nichey, and it is hard to find parts. It is like people are trying to figure things out. So the few people that actually follow me and are interacting with me are like, they're not just like, oh, cool van. Like, that might be my comments here and there, but I cannot believe the amount of detailed direct messages I get. I, first of all, get so much help. I'll post something really minute, and someone will send me like pages and pages, it feels like, of notes and pictures, and like, I ran into this, you mentioned this, but something else might be going on. It's actually really impressive.
Incredible.
Like,
wow.
How helpful people are willing to be without me even necessarily directly asking for it. And then in turn, it's also been really fun. A woman reached out to me a couple weeks ago that she just bought one and she couldn't figure something out. And she saw one of my photos. I had to deal with it. And so I was able then to go ahead and help with that. But yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, I only have like 900 followers or something like that. But someone wrote me that I didn't even know. He doesn't interact with me all the time. And he's like, hey, I just saw you in Fort Collins. And I was like, that totally is me. I'm driving by. I mean, there's only like 3 of these vans running in Colorado, and then mine's a bright green. There's not that many that are that color. But he's like, yeah, like, I waved, but I don't think you saw me, but I think it's great that you're out here, and it's beautiful, and I hope your cruise goes well. Like, it's really funny. And I had another guy reach out to me. His name's Michael, and he's been so great. We actually ended up meeting up. Like, the number one thing you get told, like, don't go meet random people off the internet.
Right.
And like, especially like, go jump in someone's van. Like, it's the total stereotype. But this guy was like, hey.
It is a van.
Yeah, I know.
At least these vans have a lot of windows.
Mine does. Yeah. I have the model. Yeah. My model is a Sportsman. You can get an A100 or 108 without, they can be all paneled. But
The child molester versions. Yeah.
It's too cute to be that. But yes, it could be pretty incognito on the inside. Not the one I have. But yeah, so like, I had this guy that was just like, hey, I'm local. I know there's only like 3 of these running in the area. I saw your post. I'd love to meet up. I went and met up with him. He had spare parts. We exchanged things. He's become one of my good friends. We actually, reach out every couple of months just about personal stuff. And it's just really interesting. It has become a big part of my life in a way I never would have thought of. It started out as just a fun outlet.
Yeah, that's great. You're part of a community, Christina.
Yeah, that's totally what it is. It's a community I would have never tried to be a part of or expected to be a part of, but has been really great to me.
Yeah, I think it's really wonderful. Now, I had joked about your garage.
Oh, yes. So the garage, or I like to call the van showroom, is a work in progress. I'm about halfway done. So I do a lot of house projects anyways. My house is built in 1890, and and my condo before this was built in the 50s. I like the old charm of all of this, but I also like the idea of kind of being able to take care of something and invest in it. And so I've drywalled the garage so far. I have mud and taped. I have not sanded it down to do the next finishing steps. I've insulated it. And this is a 4-car garage, by the way, people. So when I say I'm halfway done, if it was a normal size garage, I'd be done.
It used to have carriages in it. Now it has.
Yes. And so I put painting the rafters, putting wood paneling in. It's definitely going to be more designed out. But I joke that it's my van showroom, even though I will have other things in there. I'm building out a wood shop in there too.
You are such an old dude.
I know, this is like how it ends up being.
I'm putting in a wood shop. That's fantastic.
Well, I have all of these. I got into woodworking a little bit ago. This is another thing. I just pick things and I'm like, I'm going to learn about that. And so that was another one of my things a few years back. I got into woodworking. And then I went to an estate sale one day, maybe a year and a half ago, and bought all of the equipment. And now I'm trying to lay it out so it's a little bit more functional for me to use it all.
I think it's great. I tease you, but only affectionately, because I think it's great. I hope this is inspiring to people. First of all, because you are a DIYer, as your bio says, and I remember you saying like, oh yeah, I figure how hard it could it be? I'm just going to look it up on YouTube and I'll figure it out. The last thing about the van is, as a result of this, you now do some solo travel, right? Yep. So you take your dog. Your dog Snoop, who also is popular out there you're like the third most popular part of your Instagram.
Yeah, it's not about me. It's about the van first, then the dog, then me.
Yes, that's right. So you now go off on road trips and camp and so on, and you do those sometimes solo, yes?
Yeah. I mean, that was also the appeal of the van. I've thrown a bed in the back, and it kind of was an opportunity where you wouldn't have to plan out. Right. I work a normal 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and that's limiting if you don't take like a Friday off, if you want to go up into the mountains and get there early enough to find a spot and pitch a tent and all of this. And this really opened up an opportunity for me to just leave after work one day, crash in the back of the van wherever I want along the way, and kind of get to use it and spend more time throughout Colorado doing more of what I wanted on the weekends, a little more impromptu.
Yeah, I think that's really fun. So I want to pivot now to our last set of subjects, and this is something that we've talked about offline, is some other solo activities that sometimes I think people struggle with. And I'm often surprised that they struggle with it, only because I think I tackled some of them earlier in life, if I may. And I want to talk about three of those, 2 of which I'm good at and 1 of which I'm not.
Okay.
But I think you're good at all 3.
Oh, okay.
So the first one is going out and eating alone. I'm good at that. The second one is going out and doing some activity alone. Going to a museum alone, but the sort of prototypical one is going to a movie alone. Because I think that a lot of people struggle going to a movie alone, which I think is ironic because...
Yeah, you're not interacting the whole time anyways.
That's right.
The perfect solo activity.
And exactly. It's sort of the ideal solo activity, in my opinion, except for the fact of not being able to talk about it right afterwards with whoever you saw it with. And then the last one is cooking alone. And I want to start with that one because that's the one I'm not good at. And
as soon as you listed it, I was like, I know which one he doesn't do.
I'm good at heating up food alone, but I'm not good at cooking alone.
Special skill set.
That's right. And you described your cooking alone process. It almost felt like a movie. Like it almost felt like a rom-com movie kind of thing. You're like, I pour myself a glass of wine, and you think that, and so you make your cooking alone an event. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Like it kind of became a thing. I would do it here and there. And obviously, I'm sure just like everybody else during COVID, you start investing in more of that kind of stuff. But it became a thing where it's like, I don't really have anywhere to go. Why wouldn't I cook myself a nice dinner and learn how to do something new and fancy? And if I'm going to do this, then I'm going to light a candle. I'm going to put on some music.
Yes.
I mean, I'm basically going to take myself on a date night, and it's just me walking around my kitchen with my glass of wine leisurely, singing along to something, figuring out as I go. But it's been really fun.
Yeah, of course. I think this is inspirational. I'm not quite ready to do that yet, but I like the idea. Also, what I like the idea about this, and I don't mean to keep referencing Clubhouse, but I opened a cooking for one room in there for the solo club.
Okay.
And it was early in the app, and maybe, I don't know, maybe 50 people dropped in. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a huge room there. But the way that these people talked about cooking, and like the passion in terms of the pan and the butter and the spices and the way and what they sounded like artists. Like I had this guy jump on, and I asked about cooking meat because I'm trying to live forever. And so I've been eating these like huge salads, but there's not enough calories obviously in a salad, and I don't want to douse it in dressing. That's not good calories. So what I do is I often put a protein on it. And so I was experimenting with how do you sort of quickly and kind of, do a good job quickly cooking a steak with a frying pan, right? Just a very simple, kind of thing. And he's like, okay, Peter, this is what you do. And you could just, he's talked about leaving the meat out to get it to room temperature and then putting in the pan and then putting the butter around the meat, not under it, and salt and pepper. And he's like, it's super easy. It's super fast. It's going to be incredible. But what struck me was how excited he was about this. And I realized this man has turned cooking a piece of steak into an art form.
Absolutely. And it's then just the challenge of perfecting it, right? And each time you're getting the reward. So it's even more fun because you're just making it better and better for yourself. That's the best part about being for one. I'm going to make it exactly how I like it. And yeah.
I think that's great. So now if you were to give someone some advice, let's suppose someone's listening to this and they're like, I want to take myself onto a home dinner date, so to speak, and make something. What advice do you have for them? I assume one of them is don't have too much wine. It's probably one of them.
Yeah.
How do they
you gotta
go
make
about
it to the end of the recipe.
Exactly. How do you sort of make that work for you?
You mean like how do I approach it? Like how do I decide what I'm going to make that night?
Well, I don't know. You now you do this a lot, but when you first if you're going to say like it's your first time ever, you're not now. I think the idea is this: is you're making a meal for yourself, like you're designing it as an entire experience.
Yeah, I mean, so I always make myself appetizers. Probably like a hard. That sounds like very elaborate. It could just be like a nut and cheese plate or something like that. But I always give myself something to snack on so I'm not like getting frustrated on how long it's taking me.
Okay, that's good.
Because no matter what, these recipes will be like difficulty level, average, should take you 30 minutes. And like an hour and 20 minutes later when I first started, I was like, how am I like chopping so slow or whatever else it is? Like you have all these built up expectations. And that's kind of the beauty of not doing it for someone standing there waiting on you. You're doing it for yourself, but get yourself something excited to start with. And then I just started out. I mean, I think the first time I did this, I just was craving something. And like, well, you know me. It's like the van. I could figure out how to do that. Yeah, look at that fancy little thing. I could drizzle something on there. And I just, wanted to spend the night figuring that out. But I think another thing that I would suggest, like those meal kits, boxes like Blue Apron or HelloFresh, because really they give you, first of all, I hate grocery shopping. Like, I think I always thought I didn't like cooking, but I really just hated grocery shopping.
Oh,
I don't want to be in the store. I don't want to wait in line. I don't want to wait for you to pass by. I don't want... This is going to sound harsh after I just said, like, I'm opening up my idea to kids, but I don't want your kid touching things around me or pushing the cart into me. And, like, there's just, like, so much chaos that goes with it. But so when they ship you the ingredients, that takes off, like, I feel like the stressful part of it. And then you, like, already get to pick a recipe out ahead of time. They lay out they do all the hard stuff. That's the non-fun part. And then you can do the fun part and kind of learn what you're doing if you're starting from scratch, right? They'll tell you how to cut your carrots more fancy or make ribbons out of them, right? And it's like those little foundational stuff. I don't know. I've had friends be like, well, once I did that kind of like, oh, I thought it looked so hard, but then that bowl came out pretty good. And then they were like more interested in trying something more intense. But
that's outstanding. You know, if anybody's listening and they have a contact at one of these meal kit companies who wants to do a sponsorship for solo cooking, I know
are
a
you
guy
trolling?
who'd be open
Trolling
to
for advertising right now?
I want some sponsorships, people.
That's
but
fair.
I'm sure some of those what's funny about those meal kits is I want my calories a lot of times. So I would be perfect for the one for two people. Because whenever you make it for two people, I'm like, where's the rest of my food? So I could just take a 2-person one and make it for a single person. I think that's my solution.
Well, see,
Or
I would think of it as like, yes, okay, great. I spent the night having fun cooking myself a meal, and then I have lunch to bring in tomorrow and don't eat out.
Yes.
But yes, maybe you are just really hungry and you could have it as one giant meal.
Okay, so I like that idea. So if I just to recap this, you make yourself a little appetizer just to then, so you don't get hangry along the way. And then you sort of start out, like find something that's going to ease yourself into this and you start to get a sense of mastery.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like picking the music matters.
Yeah, so that was a big thing too. Yeah, it's at the start of COVID, or maybe, I don't know, a couple months in, there was a lot of the musicians doing like Instagram lives, and they were just doing stuff to try to boost the morale of their community and stay relevant. And that was about the time I really started cooking all the time. And so I'd put like my laptop screen up and stream one of those live things. And that was really fun. It kind of felt like you were doing something on that Friday night rather than just cooking alone. But
yeah, it felt special. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's outstanding. So let's pivot to, we're not going to be locked away forever, to eating out alone.
Yes.
Of which I do that a lot. If I don't cook, I eat out a lot, right? Like so, and of course I love dining with someone and I love conversation. Conversation is one of my favorite things to do. Yet I also like my solitude, right? This is an exploration of solitude. And there is something about being alone in a crowd that I find incredibly appealing. And I'm curious.
Yeah, I completely agree. First of all, I just pay attention to things in my surroundings I would normally miss. And honestly, that's how I meet people and have really interesting conversations, going to sit at the bar in different places. I think I really started eating alone more when I started traveling pretty heavily for work. I wasn't usually with anyone else. And so I'd be in all these cities and I'm like, I'm not going to just stay in my room and order room service. Like, I want to go see something if I'm going to these different places and I'm only here for a few days. So I'd go plop down at a bar and try to find something local or something I've never heard of. And first of all, I tried things because I would take whatever they just recommend, talking to the bartender, that I probably wouldn't, again, if I just sat in my room and ordered, I wouldn't have tried. And then I also met people that are also sitting alone. And it's interesting to see why people are there by themselves. And I also just, notice things happening around me that I think I miss often when I'm distracted by someone else in front of me.
Yeah, I think that's right. So I think part of the reason that people don't like to dine alone is they feel what's called the spotlight effect. They think everybody's looking at them and judging them for being alone. And no one's doing that. Like, no one is ever going, oh, that poor alone person. If anything, they're like, I wish I was not with the person I'm dining with right now.
They're like, look at that person over there sipping on their wine, having such a great time.
Now, I do have, and I want to get your reaction to these things. I do have some, what I would call best practices or sort of ideas about how to go about dining alone. The first one is related to something that we've covered in previous solo episodes, but never have had, I feel, like a satisfactory answer to that, is that a host or hostess will say, just one. And there'll be a tendency to want to apologize for that or to be embarrassed by that. Like, because that just one thing feels like, or whatever. But because the norm is obviously not to dine alone. Sure. And I always wanted to come up with a snappy comeback to that. And you know what I've realized is the best response to that? Do you know what my best response to that is?
Yeah, thank God. No. Just one? Oh, yeah, thank God.
Thank God. I just, you know what? I just simply say yes.
Yeah.
I just say yes.
I think I usually, because I go to the bar, I guess, a lot by myself. When I'm by myself, it just feels weird to take up a whole table if I don't need it, especially during COVID, right? Their tables are so sparse available. But I don't know that I run into that a whole lot, because I think I usually walk up and say, like, is the bar available, or can I just go seat myself?
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that actually is a perfect segue into number 2, which is, I think one of the great things about dining alone is your preferences for tables and places change.
Yeah.
Right? So suddenly you want what I call, like, if you're in the dining room, I certainly want what I call the mafia table, right? So I want a table in the back or in the corner with my back against the wall where I can see everything going on. You know,
yeah.
So I'm always looking for the mafia table in this. And for people who don't understand why it's called the mafia table, you should watch gangster movies. But basically it's like no one can sneak up on you and put a cap in you. Basically, you see your attackers coming. But the other one is at the bar, and I have a particular spot at the bar that I like.
Oh, right.
If it's the right bar. Do you know what this spot is?
Yes, the corner.
The corner, yeah. So, many bars have sort of two sides to them, you know what I mean? And there's that corner where it meets. I'd like to sit at the short end of, at the very end of the long part of the bar. So I can look all the way down the long bar. Mm-hmm. And so what that does is your people watching is much better. You're not just looking at the bartender. And then the other one is it does allow for sort of more degrees of freedom if you do or want, or you have an opportunity to chat with someone. Because you have the person to your right, to your left, and then another extra person, you know what I mean, up the bar one spot.
Right.
The next thing is, can you tell I've thought about this?
I already knew the first two, because the one time we went, well, we've obviously gone to dinner more than once, but one time when we went, maybe more than once, you immediately said what table we were not going to sit at. And I was like, okay. I mean, listen, I didn't have a preference, but that's fine. We don't have to sit there. Yes. So I knew you were going to have a strong opinion.
Yes. And now the reason I say that I like this as a solo is you don't have to negotiate with someone else. You don't have to worry about which way they're facing and all that kind of stuff. Right. So so this actually brings me to the next one. And this might be the thing that you've noticed also is you get to dictate sort of pace a lot better. Mm. And so I find this happens a lot, like if I go to brunch alone. And that is that, like the server wants to get your entire order, get it to you as soon as possible and all this stuff. And I'm just like, I'm going to have my cappuccino. Like I order my cappuccino and they're like, you ready to order? I'm like, I'm not ready to order. And then the cappuccino comes and then I enjoy it, and then I'm ready to order.
Sure.
And it's so you get to pace the way, if you get an appetizer, when it comes out, how it comes out, having a cocktail. I'm not much of a drinker these days, but when I do, I never want to be drinking a cocktail while I'm eating an appetizer. It's weird. I know it's weird, but it doesn't matter when I'm alone.
I mean, hey, yeah, you do whatever you want.
That's right. So that's the thing. I think I had one more, but it actually has slipped away. Oh, the last one is this. What were you going to say? No,
I was going to say that was 3, but hey, if you have a 4th, go ahead.
I have a 4th, and that is, it's worth considering what you're going to do with your time.
Okay.
Alone, since you're not going to be having a conversation most of the time. Are you going to kind of just sit and think? Are you going to read? Are you going to journal? I think having something like that, I often like to bring a book. I often like to bring a book and a journal. And then I can decide whether I want to read or whether I want to journal or whether I want to do neither of those things.
Yeah.
That's my sense.
Yeah, I mean, I usually like that time because I feel like, especially living alone, doing most stuff alone, I'm always doing something because you're building your own schedule and you're getting your own lists done, or that's just me that creates a list every morning. And so sometimes when I go out to eat alone, it's kind of just my moment to do nothing. Whereas at home, I would never do that, right? I have a project going on. I have something I'm going to get done. It's just a moment to enjoy the drink in front of me and take in the atmosphere.
I think that's wonderful. And the one thing is I try to not be on the phone. It's just such a stereotype of just sitting there alone, scrolling through a phone. So any other ideas before we get into going to the movies alone or other places?
I don't think so.
All right. That's great. You can tell I've been formulating some opinions since this.
Obviously.
But what I want to do is I want to normalize this for people. If you're a listener, I'd like to gently encourage you to try it if you don't do it. It may seem a little strange at first, but you might find that you like it, especially if you just develop your own style. I'm not suggesting my style is going to work for everyone. All right. So movies alone. Do you remember when you started going to the movies alone?
I would say I'm not a huge movie buff, like just in general. I'm more likely to cook something elaborate or even do a puzzle by myself than really put on a movie at home by myself. So I'm not a huge movie goer, but I have gone to the movies a handful of times alone. And it was just when something really specific came out that I was interested in. And maybe other people weren't interested in that topic or anything else.
I'm scared to ask. What
I don't even know if it was anything specific. I think it was just like, oh, this looks cool. And I probably asked one person. They're like, I don't know. I didn't. I'm like, okay, screw it. I'll just go enjoy it by myself. Because to your point, you're sitting in there. You're not talking to anyone. There's no reason for you to need to like arrive with someone and walk out with someone. No one's going to notice.
Yeah. No one cares. No one cares at all. I have this experience. I remember when I started really doing it a lot was in graduate school. And when I find that I go to the movies alone there's obviously something I want to see, that I feel like is going to be enhanced by the big screen. That it's going to be an experience. And I want to the problem with watching a movie alone at home is there's just too much temptation to get on the phone, to get up and get a snack and to move around and pause it and so on. There is something about being so fully present in a movie theater that you don't even want to get up to pee. Like it's that, there is something provocative, compelling in that way. So for me, it's oftentimes a spur of the moment decision.
Yeah, I think that's the best part about that. Yeah, is that you feel like you're actually getting out and doing something, but you don't have to really plan for it.
That's right. You can decide minutes sometimes before that you want to do it. For me, it was when I was in graduate school and I was just at the end of a long week, I was wiped out, and I just didn't have and I'm a pretty extroverted person, but I just didn't want to go and hang out, and I was poor. Oh my God. I had no money. And so there was a dollar theater. It was a little bit of a drive. It was like 20-minute drive. But I would honestly this is freaking old school. I would get out the newspaper, you know what I mean? And what's going on, what's showing. And it was either the movie was $1 or I think on Friday nights it was $2, kind of thing. And I would just pick a time and I would and also here's the other beautiful thing. 'Cause you're a single person. It's easy to walk in a little later and get a good seat.
Find a spot. Yep.
That's the other one that's nice. And so I think that, and again, I think that that's it's just really to me about just the freedom of choice. You get to watch how many times have you gone to a movie with someone and you both compromise and end up seeing something that neither of you are totally excited to see?
Yeah. I feel, and I'm always the compromiser because I'm not a huge movie buff. I'm just okay, well, I could get into that or whatever. And then I'll be 20 minutes in and be like, nope, I'm really not into this. But now I'm committed.
Yeah, it's too bad. Yeah, so there is that sort of optimizing that kind of thing. I don't do
well, anything. And then you can walk out, right? Going by yourself, I've had that experience too, where I thought I was going to love something, and I normally would have stayed the duration just because someone else was there, and I wouldn't have wanted to walk out and them not get to see the rest. But I've done it now when I'm by myself, and I'm like, I just don't really like this. I'm going to go get my ticket changed. gone out and got something else.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't have done that.
I don't do anything special that some people, like, I don't get popcorn or I don't, you know what I mean? I have done this. Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. I have done this where I'll go to like Chipotle and I'll get a burrito.
Okay.
And I'll sneak it in and I'll get in early. And I'll
eat the messiest thing to eat in the dark. I just picture your laugh.
This is before the movie starts.
Okay.
And so I go in and I have my dinner because I get a choice seat, like right in the middle. I actually researched the best place to sit in a movie theater. And I get this choice seat. I get in there early. I eat my burrito. And now I just sit and watch the movie and digest it. I know that's terrible, but I do it
I think
sometimes.
I would fall asleep. Like, that's a lot to just,
It's a lot of calories sometimes. I know, it's true. It's sometimes.
And how are you sneaking this in? A Chipotle burrito is not a small item. Like, is this like a giant thing in your pocket?
You know, they're not checking the way you wanted to. You know, we grew up poor, and my mom used to pop popcorn and hide it in our hoods, in the back of our hoods when we would go into the movie theater as kids. Yeah, I was always like scared we were going to get busted. No one ever cares.
No, I've been that person. I know I'm going to get judged for saying this. But when my dog was a puppy and he was tiny because I have a dachshund, I totally, I brought him everywhere for those first couple of months. And I didn't have a big bag, but I just threw him in there. He would sleep at the bottom of my bag on my desk at work, everywhere. Like, nobody even knew I had him. And I brought him into the movies. And my mom was like, I remember I was meeting her and she was like, someone's going to check your bag. And I'm like, why? I just literally threw a protein shaker on top of him. It was empty. It wasn't heavy. Don't worry. He was fine. And the guy glanced in my bag and I'm like, this kid does not care. He's making however much an hour. Yeah, he's barely making eye contact with me. He's just waiting for his shift in. He's going to take my little ticket stub and send me my bag. He's probably high at this moment. Yeah, he did not even glance at me. And my bag was moving. So you can bring in whatever you want.
That's really funny. Well, I hope, what I hope people come from this is a little bit, I should say, what I hope people get out of this is a bit of inspiration, because I think you're inspiring single, Christina Martinez, even if you don't remain single your entire life. I think this is a wonderful example of using the opportunities to, I have this whole list of things that people can do. They can make art, they can travel the world, they can get fit. They can simply sleep in when you want to. I guess if we were going to do this for you, we could say, an opportunity to run marathons and do half Ironmans, in order to cook delicious meals alone, to be able to restore 1968 vans and create intensely interconnected communities around them, to refinish one's garage and start a woodworking station, and so on and so forth. And so I think that that's really a wonderful way to do this, and it's the reason why I chose you to be one of the characters in this exploration of solitude. Do you have any other last thoughts about your time and the solitude that you have in your life? Which, by the way, I just want to be clear, Christina has a vast array of friends and works well with others, and she's not a hermit, right? So what we've been focused on is your time that you spend alone. But do you have any last sort of reflections on that time, that solitary time that you have?
I think we've pretty much covered it all. I would say I actually am a super social person. Super. And I get a lot of energy from being with other people, but I get more from my time out of spending it with other people after I've had my time alone. It's just that recharge time, and I guess back to the editing, just to really know what you want and get what you need out of yourself first before you give it to other people.
Well said. Christina, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Peter.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Solo, the single person's guide to a remarkable life. For more about our guests and show notes, go to petermcgraw.org. Please subscribe and share with your single friends.